Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I'm going to be interviewing Jagjot Singh. And I ran into Jagjot's material about a month ago, and I am super excited to have him on the show. So I've been going back and forth this morning on how do I start this interview and where do I begin? Because I've had so much happen to me over the year. And so I don't know whether to start last year when I had my first experience that I've spoken about on social media or where I was last month when I found Jagjot. So I think I'm going to give a little bit of background first about what happened last year. So last year, about April, I woke up in the middle of the night knowing I was going to die. And like I said, I've spoken about this on social media. I did a pod swap with AJ Parr just recently and spoke about it in both interviews. And I had to walk myself through the fear. So this happened about 2 years and 2 months after my mother passed away. So I knew that we were eternal souls. But waking up with this fear, waking up knowing I was going to die, having to walk myself through the death process, it solidified the fact for me that we are eternal beings. Now, after this, I did some sacred travel. I went to Egypt in the fall. After Egypt, I went to Teotihuacan the month later and to the Big Island a month after that. What basically happened with me is that I blew out my electric system and sent myself into a deep clearing and deep integration, which leads me to Jagjot. So I'm laying there after the beginning of the year, and I reached this point, the beginning of April, where I'm laying on the couch. My energy is low. I don't know what's going on. I have no motivation. I'm in complete stillness. And I'm like, how do I function from this space? And am I going to be like this forever? Like I said, I had no motivation. I could have lied there for days. If there was a cave for me to go meditate in, I would be totally happy doing that. I even had the thought, was I better off beforehand? Was I better off not knowing before awakening? And that's what led me to Jagjot. So I wake up, or that night, I am laying on the couch and I go, God, give me the answer. Like, what is going on? The next morning, I wake up to Sarah Elk-Haldy's newsletter, and I had interviewed her a couple years ago. It's been exactly 2 years now. And her YouTube video that she was communicating about was feeling empty during your spiritual awakening. Now, under Sarah Elk-Haldy, who's also called The Alchemist on YouTube, I found Jagjot's video, feeling lost, lazy, uninterested, and depressed after spiritual awakening. And within the few minutes of the video, it explained everything that I had just been questioning the day before. So I want to introduce you guys to Jagjot because he's part of my spiritual journey. And I also wanted him to come on and talk about after spiritual awakening because I think a lot of people right now are awakening and a lot of people may be experiencing this. So Jagjot, welcome to the show. Such a pleasure to host you. Thank you for joining me.
You're most welcome. It's good to be here, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've loved your videos, love your content. I'm so glad that Spirit, Source, the universe led me to you. It's been such a blessing for me. I actually want to really dive into this content and then also ask you who you are in the process, but this nice evolution of awakening. And maybe you can tell us some stories about your awakening too. So, Jagjot, for all of our listeners who don't know, what is awakening?
Well, yes, that's the toughest question, actually. But yes, it's an important question. What is awakening? Now, I generally present awakening as a concept, only as a concept and not as the truth. because I believe that it should be a personal experience through personal verification as to what has happened rather than me telling anybody, what is awakening. So, awakening is just a concept. Now, what happened? I'll just take you a couple of years back in my life. And I was this guy who was working in the corporate world for about a decade. And then after that, trying my hand at entrepreneurship and business, and nothing was working out. So I'm at my home and I've just given up and I'm quite upset. And in the morning, early morning, I couldn't get sleep the whole night. So one morning, I just get up and I go to my courtyard and I just get this vision where everything seems very new. Although I had been to my courtyard many times before, but this time was something different. Now I look at the sun and the tears just roll down my eyes. I look at everything and I see an interconnectedness. I see myself in everything. I do not know where my boundary begins, where it ends. I do not know where anything's boundary begins or ends in that moment. And it was an experience which cannot be described in words. Like, no words can actually do justice to that experience. I don't know if I can even call it an experience, but there was no me as person present over there. It was all interconnected and it was all made up of knowing. So I had a glimpse of that, and then everything came back, and things didn't seem the way they seemed earlier. So all my worries about what will happen, money, finances, relationships, family, this, that, all those worries were just gone. I kept thinking about the experience, like, what was that? What happened? And it was so peaceful. I had never experienced this kind of peace before. The only word that I can use for it was love. And it just didn't require anything to feel that. And it was a very deep feeling, like not even a feeling. I don't know if the word feeling does justice to it. But then something changed after that. Whenever I had interactions with people, I spoke to them, I just started seeing them as consciousness. And there was a recognition of consciousness in all. So the beingness or amness became eminent to me. It became the primary front for my interaction. Now, I explain it in this way that before that experience, the content of the world, as in what is happening around me, life, relationship, this, that, worry, finances, all the hustle of life was my foreground content, and awareness was at the background. Now there was this shift. All the content went back, and there was an awareness covering the foreground. So everything was viewed through that awareness. That awareness became the primary vision. And that brought in a lot of peace. It brought in a lot of calm. And ever since, I've been just sharing my story and trying to communicate that experience to everyone.
Amazing. Thank you
So,
for
so
sharing that
in short,
experience.
this was the experience. Yes, you were saying?
Oh, I was saying thank you for sharing that experience, but I want you to continue.
Yes. So after that, I started reading about, I started going into depth about what this experience was, and subsequently I came across teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti, and finally I came across the teachings of Ramesh Balsekar and Ramana Maharishi, and that answered my question, especially Ramana Maharishi. Now, Ramesh Balsekar had a tremendous influence in simplifying the teaching for me, because there was a lot of confusion. Most people think that just because you've had a glimpse, life becomes easy, but that's not the case. It's not that you just experience this state of bliss, and there's no permanent state. Any search for permanent state is futile. And generally, people associate awakening with a permanent state. But awakening is actually the recognition of the impermanent nature of life. It's a deep recognition of impermanent nature of life. So now what happened was that my sensations, ability to sense became heightened, because all of a sudden I find my mind very clear. Earlier, my mind would just keep running all the time, keep running, ruminating, daydreaming, everything would happen. It would just keep running. And there was this dullness all the time. I would just feel sleepy, dull. But now there was this alertness, awareness. So I experienced both the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. So when I would experience low, it would be like the most crushing feeling. But at the same time, when I felt the highs, it would be like euphoria. But then what happened was, somewhere in the middle, I found my most natural state, where it was very settling and peaceful. And there was a recognition of that. So that brought in a lot of insight about life, living. It actually changed my relationships. When I say relationship, I just don't mean romantic relationships. I mean, I include everything in my relation. Even friendships and associations are relationships for me. The way you relate to another, that started changing. And again, I saw consciousness in the other, the beingness in the other. And there was more acceptance of myself, the way this me or this organism, mind body organism, has been designed. And also, there was an acceptance of the way other people, the other mind body organisms, have been designed. And I could see the beauty behind what is known as chaos. I could see an order, a perfect order behind what is known as chaos. So earlier, I would just not like traffic. Now I live in India, so traffic is like the most chaotic thing here, one of the most chaotic things. But I could now see a perfect order in that chaos, and it just didn't bother me anymore. Now, occasionally, somebody would honk from behind, and I would get up. I would get a little bit riled up here and there. It would happen. So in the moment, everything happened, but nothing stick, nothing stuck to me, and the gaps in my experiences were mostly peaceful. So ever since I started, I was initially hesitant to write about this experience, but slowly I found myself just doing this more and more. And then I realized is that when you know the one, you just can't help but talk about the one. It's like it doesn't give you any other thing to do. You just talk about the one because it's so beautiful. And the same thing was said by Nisargadatta Maharaj, who's another teacher. He was the guru of Sri Ramesh Balsekar, and some of his teachings are also very uh, dear to me. They're very close to my heart. And surprisingly, teachings of Sri Ramana Maharishi and Nisargadatta Maharaj are actually very similar. I see them both saying the same thing. And my favorite quote from Sri Ramana Maharishi was, if you want to know the truth, don't try to be this or that, just be, and you will know. Which is so simple. It's just so simple. And I just didn't realize that I've been doing this all along. Only when I read that. So it confirmed my experience. It validated my experience.
I had
So
the
ever
same
since I've been just talking about this message.
I had the same, excuse me, I had the same experience. So after last year, after my experience, about a month later, I was listening to one of Lucia Renee's videos, and she mentioned that Ramana Maharishi was her teacher and that we should go watch his documentary. So I go on YouTube about a month after that, and I watched the documentary. My mouth just dropped open. It hit the floor within the first 15 minutes when I heard his story. And then I I remember calling a friend and telling her, who's a mentor of mine, north of me here in Washington State. And I have his book right next to me over here, and he's been part of my journey as well. And I'm really blessed to have found his material as well and to meet a fellow soul who had, or I should say, I had a similar experience to him, and the resonance was there. And he's such a beautiful soul. And I'm glad that I can still have contact with him, even though he is in spirit form now. But he also played a role for me. And that was also something where I knew it was divinely led to you, is because during that video that I was listening to, you mentioned him. So I knew that I was being led down the right path. I also want to kind of circle back to something that you said. You said that you experienced the highs and the lows. And I think that this is part of it. And people don't realize that during awakening, you can have these ecstatic feelings of being connected. But now I've learned that we can
Yeah,
also have these lows where, yes, we feel connected, but it's different. It's from stillness.
it's different. Yes, yes. So it's like you experience everything in its pure form without any adulteration of thought. And normally, for most people, thinking goes along with the emotional intensity that takes place. So sometimes their mind is not able to process an emotion before they actually jump onto another thought. And the mind keeps jumping from one thought to another and nothing gets processed. It's like they just, you know, jumping from one thought to another. And the mind keeps returning back to the same stories, same stuff over and over again. But now this was different after the experience. There was this intensity which was felt in in the body, completely in the body. And sometimes it would shake me up. It would be so intense. But there was no fear. There was no there was no feeling that I must get rid of this or do anything about it, other than to just allow the presence to witness whatever was arising. So there was complete acceptance that, okay, this is arising. The highs are arising and the lows are arising. But then I noticed that this presence started growing with time, and the intensity of these experiences also, it started becoming more subdued. So it wasn't like the swing wasn't high enough. Now the swing reduced after some time, as um, this insight deepened within. So I think as this this is what Ramesh would call deliverance. So he would say awakening would just happen in a split second. Awakening is just a glimpse into the wholeness, a crack into the structure of the personality, a personality which had been, you know, built up with a lot of knowledge from childhood, through conditioning, through environment, through schooling, through different ideas, meeting different. It's all based on knowledge, worldly knowledge. And now there is a crack in that. So of course it's going to pain. It's never going to be in fact, it can be quite painful. It can be very painful. And for me, it was quite painful initially. And I was confused myself at that time that wasn't supposed to be like this because we just hear stories that a sage had an awakening and then they were immersed in bliss. But that's not the case, because even Ramana Maharishi, when he had experience as a teenager, where he rose above his body and he saw that he's not the body, he's not the mind. Now he had that experience, but that experience just showed him the glimpse. After that, he actually left his home and went to Tiruvannamalai, to Mount Arunachala. And he meditated there for years in isolation, complete isolation, practically more than a decade in the Virupaksha caves, all by himself. Nobody even knew he existed, in the town area. Slowly, people got to know. They started offering him food. They brought him down, and then they built an ashram where he would sit in the hall and would just allow people to come and see him. And most of his time spent with people was in silence, because he always propagated this idea that silence is the highest teaching, because the deepest insights in life happen through silence. And words would be used, but only when they were required, when they were necessary, according to him. He was a man of few words, but whatever he spoke direct. So there was no spinning interesting stories or anything with him. He was direct. And there was only one pointer. He said, look at this I. Who is this I that is examining, that is experiencing, that is thinking it is this or that? This I is your key. And when this I inverts on itself, there is no other option, there is no other place it can go to other than the source from which it emanated in the first place. And my experience was, and this was also the experience of many other spiritual masters, that this I does come back even after it has merged back into its source. But now the quality of this I is completely different, because there is a foreground awareness. It is dipped in the color of awareness. So the perception now towards life is very different. It's very different.
I agree. I've experienced that as well. It was like a merging of my soul, like more fully into my body, where that witness state, for years, I've called it the objective observer, that person that is
Yes.
watching me meditate, right? Or a person that is watching me live has come
Yeah.
forward into my body. And I had this very strange, like, the only words I can find is my ego self was battling my soul self for um, ownership of this body. And there was this negotiation that was going on, which was causing a lot of suffering for me. And you speak about that also in your videos. And I think that that's an important thing to like. I want to get into that, but I also want to talk about that observer state, that witness, and like how we go from, you know, having a separate witness state to now our witness state is forward, you know, vision forward, like you were
Yes.
saying. and what that means for us and what can happen to us as far as like our mind goes.
Yeah, yeah. So um, I feel the witness state is the soul state, and soul is the pure witness. Soul is always pure. Generally, when we talk to people, we say that my soul is hurt, my soul is injured, but actually, soul cannot be hurt. Soul, because soul does not have a form. Um, the as per my concept, the soul does not have a form. It is the eternal witness of every phenomena, and yet it is not different or separate from the content that is being manifested in its awareness. Now, the thing is that as the awareness dawns and the individual experience and the individuality dissolves, the soul state actually emerges, because soul state is vast. The pure witness is vast, and it's very it's a very natural, very relaxing state, because there is no uh, evaluation of content that is being witnessed in that state. It's simply watching. You're simply watching what is happening. You're not judging anything. You're not evaluating. The analytical mind is not in use. So it sees the mind also. And that is how we know that mind is not the reality, not the ultimate reality. And mind is a very potent tool, but it is also a known entity. And the knower of the mind is the witness, is the soul, which does not belong to individuals. So, soul is like one consciousness. It is one consciousness that is manifesting as minds. Now, if you want, we can call it, you know, um, we can call it soul, small manifestation, the small self, the separate self. I prefer to use the word separate self other than ego, because the word ego has been uh, used in a very, uh, you know, in a very negative context. So the mind is all about separation. So mind still believes that it is separate from the rest, but soul does not have any such concept. Now, when the mind is sufficiently quiet, then what happens is we tap into that energy of soul consciousness, the witness consciousness. And in that, there is generally no thought. Or if the thought is even arising, there is no charge associated with the thought. You just see a thought arising, and everything is accepted the way it is, without you know without any preference. It's like you're okay with everything. You see everything as whole, everything is connected. There is no separation from anything in that vision. And it's just that, as we understand more and more of our mind, the false begins to drop. Now, this is the teaching of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, that as the false begins to drop, this the self, the pure self, the soul self, or the witness, whatever you want to call it, the infinite self, the eternal self, emerges. It's not that it emerges, it's already there. It's just that the clouds of false of falsity, of illusions were covering the sun. It's just like the clouds in the sky. The sky, the vastness was always there, but the dark clouds cover it, and we identify with the dark clouds, and we get sad that, oh, it's not sunny. But as soon as the clouds just move, we just see that it's all bright. The sun is shining bright. It's always shining. So that's the case with with the witness. Witness is what we truly are. Consciousness is what we truly are. So the only thing is that when when our mind becomes quiet, we can tap into that energy and we can be that.
Yes.
And that
It,
is why, yeah, and that is why, Ramana Maharishi always said that the moment your mind starts moving here and there, this happening, that happening, bring it back to here and now. So, here and now, this moment, you are the pure, unaffected witness of the phenomenal world.
okay, so people who have experienced this and now they want to be able to sit more fully surrender into that stillness, what can they do if they find themselves in that state where their separate self is causing suffering in the mind?
Yes. So, first of all, observe the suffering. Allow the suffering to be total. The problem is that we don't allow the suffering, we don't completely suffer. As they say in Buddhism, that if you want to suffer, suffer like a Buddha. Buddha does not cut short the suffering. Buddha lets the suffering be there totally. When the suffering is there totally, you it just doesn't sustain for very long, because that consciousness that is illuminating that suffering, which is completely unaffected from that suffering, that becomes revealed. But the problem is we get scared and we try to escape it. So either we engage in, sensual pleasures, or we engage in distractions, smartphones, television, books. It can be anything. But we don't sit and observe and completely feel what is happening. Most of us don't even sit and feel totally what is happening. So the suffering never ends. So it keeps on happening. We are stuck in this cycle, continuous cycle. It's too hard. I cannot do it. And then they again come back to it. It's the same stuff happening over and over again. But if this whole movement is seen for what it is, it it becomes apparent that this is an illusion, because you're trapped in the same cycle. It's just the same thoughts that keep running in our mind over and over again. And most of us know that we are trapped in this cycle. We know what's causing hurts. Many people can tell very easily, oh, this is from my childhood. This happened because of this, because of that. But they still get, triggered, and they still get trapped in the same, because every time that happens, they're just looking for an escape. So, what the master said was, don't try to escape it, see it with total intensity, that means total vision, and there will be a separation of the story that is happening and the feeling that is there. You will see that these two are separate. So, when you drop the story, you know, e- even the feeling that is associated, the pain, the suffering that is associated with it, it drops. It cannot sustain without the story. So watch the false. What's false is the story. And when the story ends, when my story ends, the me also end. That's what I call it, the end of me and my story, which is peace. Peace means then we are in that space of eternal witnessing. And nothing has to be done. This path does not prescribe any practice or any method, not even meditation as a practice. Although I do not, I don't think practices are bad. I do some practices myself, but I just do them for their own sake, not to achieve any outcome. So it just says, bring your attention here in this moment and see whatever is arising completely, totally, with total vision. That means no obstruction. And it will drop on its own. It's just like a wave in the sea. The wave can be very high, it can create a lot of intensity, but eventually its destiny is to just fall flat into the ocean. It is nothing against the ocean. And ocean is what we truly are. We are not the wave. So our dilemma in life is like, when the thinking happens, we get carried away thinking we are a wave, and we just get entangled, continuously start getting entangled in that. Oh, let me become a better wave, let me become a stronger wave, let me become more resilient wave. But that just keeps the suffering alive, because We create expectations, then those expectations are sometimes not fulfilled, and we feel disappointed. So this me keeps coming back every time. The way I wanted it did not happen the way I wanted it. It should have been this way, that way. But these masters are saying, look at this me or I. You can call it I or me. It's the same thing. And what is the nature of this? This wave, this small wave which you call I, what is the nature of this wave? So when you're totally attentive, you can separate. You can see that what you are experiencing in the moment, the turbulence, no matter how intense it is, you are completely separate from it. You are the witness. And when you can tap into that energy, then it does not affect you that much. You will still feel moments of pain in life that cannot be taken away, but that pain in the moment will not translate into suffering in horizontal time. So the life will be relatively peaceful.
Yes, I agree. That's really shifted. I've gone through a lot of shifts in my life since about 2017. And even I view the suffering differently. The suffering then um, was very visceral, where now when something happens, it's more a witnessing of and more seeing the different fractals of the larger picture. And I've through my life been a big picture person, like being able to see the larger picture of the situation. But now it's like little fractals of the situation from my perspective, their perspective, other people's perspective, world perspective, God's perspective, like all these different fractals start snapping into place. And it's more, like you said, that witnessing of and seeing and gaining understanding about instead of having to go into those feelings of suffering. And even as I'm saying this, I'm finding like when I'm talking about this, sometimes there are no words like to describe,
Yeah.
what all of this is. I also find that I have a different relationship with my thoughts. And I've not discussed this um, before outwardly, but before where I used to go, I'm sitting in meditation, my thoughts are coming in, I'm like swiping, like non-attachment, not attached, not attached. Just keep on like pushing them through, coming back to my breath, coming back to my center. Now it's very fascinating. So I have a practice now where I sit with my thoughts. I wake up in the morning, I sit with my thoughts. I have found that they are information. So I have always felt, being an
Yes.
energetic healer, that we are antenna, that we are givers and receivers of information, and that our energy systems are constantly like, I'm sending information to you, you're sending information to me, your energetic system's testing it out, mine is testing it out. So what's happening now is I'm sitting with my thoughts and I'm realizing, all right, so I think about my sister, or I think about, a business situation, or I think about something with my kids. And, I have a practice now, I jot these down. And then I wake up, I get up, I receive a text from my sister, I get that note about business, and I see the thing about my son. So what I'm seeing is my thoughts are a channeling of information or data that I am going to need for myself, for my children, for my life, for my client. Before a client shows up, I jot down every thought that I have, and it pertains to my client that is coming in at 11 a.m. So I have a different relationship with my thoughts now. It's like I am a mirror
Yeah.
for everyone in existence, and that data or information that I'm inputting
Yeah.
is for everything that's been going on. And yes, there's also that mirror of there's a piece in everything for me always, and I've got my learning continuing always, but that information is for what's going to be happening that day, or what's going to be happening with my children, or what's going to be happening with my clients. It's very fascinating. Have you
Yeah.
yourself had this experience post your awakening?
Oh, yes. In fact, the nature, our nature, our relationship with our thinking actually changes after this, um, after this insight, after this understanding. And now I would explain it in the way Ramesh Balsekar put it. He divided the mind conceptually into two parts. Now, there's no such division in reality. Just to explain the concept, he divided it into two parts. He called one as the thinking mind, which is the ego or the separate self, and one is the working mind. Now, the thinking mind is the one that is attached to an outcome. So, when we are attached to an outcome, what we notice is that we are creating a lot of resistance. Like, for example, if it's related to work, and I'm worried about how my work will be perceived, how it will be received by my friends, by my colleagues, by my social, spiritual group, wherever I am. What will be other people's expectations? If these thoughts are running constantly in my mind, then that is resistance. It is resistance to the natural flow of my thinking. The natural flow of my thinking is the working mind. That means, let's say I have to meet a client, I have to do this for my children, I have to. This is just the planning mind. Now, this is a spontaneous mind. It just plans. Okay, step A, B, C, D. This has to be done for this person. That is to be done for that person. This I need for myself, and it just plans. But the thinking mind is in opposition to it. It's like, no, no, but what will they think about you? What will people think about you? How will your friends see you? How will your, it just brings this what if doubt scenario, right? So this is wastage of energy. This is wastage of potential because what happens is before the insight, the thinking mind is dominant for most people. And they're more worried about how they and their work will be perceived, and they identify with their work. Their core identity is attached to their work. And sometimes that can create a lot of pressure on them because then they see that, oh, if I don't perform well, I may disappoint others. And a lot of people who've had this insight and who are into spirituality were big time people pleasers before this. People pleasers and doormats, and we all were. So we understand, and most of us were introverts too. And uh, so we understand that how much that thinking mind can create a resistance. And it, sometimes even when we are feeling something, let's say an emotion comes up with its intensity, and we immediately, the thinking mind creates a resistance to it. No, no, don't feel this. Otherwise it will destroy you. It will feel like death, and we try to escape that death. Now we know it's not real, but we try to escape that death. But generally, when this question comes up often with people who I talk to, and they say, I felt like I was dying, so I avoided that. And I said, but what if you let that die? The one that wanted to die, what if you let that die? Something amazing. You could have been open to something amazing, something vast, something bigger than what you can ever imagine. And okay, if it's not happened, then perhaps it's not the right time for you. But you know, next time if such a thing happens, be open to the experience. So uh, when we accept what is, things as they are, the complete acceptance of the unpredictable and unaltered flow of life, that brings about a tremendous change. And that is what um, these teachers called true meditation. The practice of meditation is very good for calming the nervous system and the mind. So I encourage that. In fact, I conduct meditations myself every Wednesday for that same purpose. But then I also tell people that there is a different aspect to meditation as well, which is in actually daily interactions with people, with situations, with life. And the more observant you are in that, you get to know your thoughts better. You get to know where you're putting up the resistance. So after awakening, this vision becomes total. So there is no more resistance now to thoughts. So it's all accepted. Okay, if if I'm going somewhere and I don't reach on time, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. If I miss my flight, it's okay. If I'm not able to do something, if things don't work out when we're trying to do something, that's okay. It's like you don't feel that your reputation or your or anything that you've built will be crushed because of things not working out externally. So what is experienced is a deep level of peace, which is just this working mind now just planning and flowing. Okay, scenario A didn't work. I'll just follow plan B, scenario B. And there's just no thinking about it. Why didn't A work out? I wanted that to work out. you know, we just go with the flow. So life becomes simple, but I would still say it's not easy. Simple is not easy, but it does become simple. It becomes very simplified.
Mhm, I agree. And it goes into that flow that you were talking about. And you start seeing things like, oh, if I miss that flight, that was just supposed to be. That was part of my path.
Yeah,
I might not know the reason why that happened, but I can surrender to that and not get totally upset about it or have it ruin my day. Now I'm thinking, okay, so what is the magic that's coming now that I have missed my flight? And be open to that
yeah, yeah,
instead. And I do,
exactly.
very much prefer that flow state. And it becomes life, then becomes, I call it the
Yeah,
magic of life. And there's definite
yeah,
uptick in the magic of life when you find yourself in that flow and you're going and there's coincidences and synchronicities and, you know, like I wake up and I saw the email and her video led me to your video. And you also, one of your teachers is also Ramana. And um, that's the flow. It's it's almost like your soul is unfolding your life before your eyes.
yeah,
And there's also actually I want to talk about that. So self-identity, since I just said my soul is like flowing out to my life.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
verbiage of who am I, who is soul, who is me, like who is functioning? Is it I'm lizzing right now, or am my soul is like because I do feel like I am soul led now, and there are moments that I am lizzing. I'm gonna make it a verb. Um, but
yeah,
explain a little bit because there is that change in feeling of self. And I know when I first started making
yeah,
that shift, I'm like, well, what do I call out these pieces of myself now? When I'm speaking, like the I or the me, the big, big S, little s, the separate self, all of it, like
yeah,
um, defining it. And I know mind wants like to
yeah.
attach identity always, right? Or wants to figure out something. But,
Yes.
I find those
Yeah,
descriptors very difficult.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes. So the whole idea is that uh, existence is painful for most people. Like, I don't know a single human being for whom life had ever been easy. Whether they were rich or poor, there are different challenges, but there are challenges. So, life, the existence is traumatic, it is tough for all of us. So, the masters, through this deep contemplation and understanding of life, came to this conclusion They said that we are trying to find solutions. We're trying to become better. We're trying to become something other than what we are right now. And they came to this insight that this whole process of trying to become something or unbecome something keeps this separation between the two images. One image is me that I carry right now, is me. This is who I am. I am Liz, I am Jagjot, I am anybody else. This is my image right now. And I'm like this. And I divide myself into two halves and I say, these are my flaws, these are my good points, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. But it's all contained in that image. Then what that image does is, with all of this movement, it does experience a lot of pain in life, because you know life just flows, which means a lot of things, which means financial unpredictability, relationship unpredictability. Nothing is permanent, like nothing is fixed. Everything is like, so this image, me, it comes up with a defense. It says, let me become let me become something greater than this, who I am right now, something bigger than this, so that I become so strong that I'm not affected by anything in life. And in this process of trying to become something other than what I am right now, one actually experiences more and more suffering. And it just creates this separation between these two images, which are never attainable. They never join together. It's like the moment you reach somewhere and you feel that you have attained it, again the goalpost is changed. You're not happy with it anymore, and the mind says, no, 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 you're still not there. So these masters said that, look at this image. Let's come back to the first image, this me or this I. And let's just contemplate on, what is this? Is this really there? Or is this something just come out because of some kind of an emotional intensity in a given moment? Now you will also notice, Liz, that you think about yourself as a separate person mostly when there is some kind of discomfort. Because when we are happy, when we are joyful, we don't even bother. We don't say, oh, I am Liz experiencing happiness right now. But when it's suffering, then we generally say, oh, I am suffering right now. So, so the master said, the fundamental question that leads to complete understanding is, who am I? Who is this I that is claiming I'm this, I'm that? And they say that if an answer comes to this question, it is just I moving in different directions. If I say, no, no, but I am this is my identity. Now, this does not mean that we are discounting our work or our contribution to the world. It's not like that. But when we understand that this the sense of I is not really there, all there is this instrument, this mind body organism that is destined by the universe to perform healing. And it has been blessed by the universe with that gift to perform healing. But there is no I. There is only the eternal self, the soul. So the soul, in the in my concept, there is no separation in the soul. Like, your soul is not different from my soul or from any other person's soul. It is only the mind, the illusion. The mind is the I, which creates this distinction, this difference, which says that, no, 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 you are separate, I am separate. And yes, in appearances, of course, we are separate. We can see that. But the consciousness that is running both of us is the same. And there's a beautiful analogy given by Ramesh Balsekar, and that was, just like electricity powers all the gadgets in the kitchen, for them to be able to perform the functions that they are destined to. A juicer will perform juicing, an electric stove will perform a different function. A washing machine will perform a different function. Whatever the gadget is designed to do, the electricity is facilitating that. So the reality of the gadget is not the function that they are doing, but the electricity that they are carrying. And and the same concept he applied to us, that all the beings are powered by the same consciousness. Some are doing healing work, some are doing some other work, some are, playing games, like sports. Some are playing sports. Some are reading. Some are writers. Some are artists. But the underlying current of consciousness is same, and that consciousness is the soul, is the eternal soul, the indestructible essence, never born, never died. It is timeless. So this question, which Ramana Maharishi called as self-inquiry, was meant only to divert, to actually focus your attention onto one object, which is the self, the small self, the I. Okay, you say my ego, or let's say my separate self hurts. Okay, my separate self feels pain or suffers. Now he says, now just observe that suffering, be totally present with that suffering. That means invert your I to itself and see what happens. When you're totally present with this I, it just dissolves. It's never there. And one great pointer to this is that it's not our continuous experience. I exist only when I think about myself. Otherwise, I don't exist. Most of the time, we are just doing stuff which is happening on autopilot. We're meeting people, we are calling, we are talking, we are writing, it's just happening. But the moment we start think, oh, and an example would be like, for example, if you're driving, now, most of the driving happens on autopilot. You know the route, all right? But the moment somebody cuts, all right, or honks from behind, the I comes up immediately and it's, how dare they? you know? So that I is there for a purpose. Of course, if somebody cuts me, I say, I just, you know, I react in the moment. I do say, what are
Same.
you doing, man? Be careful. But then it just comes up for that purpose and then it dissolves. It is not carried in horizontal time as I am going to teach them a lesson. How dare they cut me? That is just wastage of energy. That is thinking mind. So the working mind now comes back into the place. It's like, okay, drive again and move. And working mind is not a personal mind. It is just it is it is just a step of things which the brain is processing and coming up with intelligent solutions and following a path. So what happens is that slowly the emotional part of the brain and the rational part of the brain comes into balance, and that is the beauty. So the need to answer the question, who am I, actually dissolves the I. That is what Ramana Maharishi says. And that is peace. Because then we are free of concepts. We are free from trying to become something, trying to become better, trying to become whole. He says you don't have to become anything. You completely are whole right now as you are. Until you are identified with this small self, the body, the mind, you will always feel suffering because you have identified with something limited. Like if I'm too identified, let's say with my religion or my let's say my political affiliations, that I support party A and that my identity is all based on party A, and the party A has to win, it has to do better. If that party doesn't do well, I become, my happiness is like completely perturbed because of that. Then then that is suffering. But the moment I realize that okay, I am affiliated to that party, I have this religion, I have a family, but this none of this defines who truly I am. It does not define me. What defines me is cannot be stated in words, cannot be said in concepts, but it becomes evident and completely clear in silence.
Yes, which takes us to our true nature, which you also talk
Yes.
about. So let's segue into what is our true nature and this state post awakening.
Yes. So our true nature is the witness, is the soul self. That is our true nature. The soul is manifesting as the same soul, the consciousness is manifesting as Liz, as Jagjot, as any other thing, person, place in the world. It is all made up of awareness. It is all made up of knowing. And through that knowing, it is known. And post awakening, again we're using awakening as a concept here.
Mhm.
Post awakening, this consciousness has is recognized in the other also. So the separation between me and the other begins to dissolve. Now it does not mean that I have to like everybody or that I have to get along with everybody. In fact, for most people, I would say, for example, I don't get along with everybody. I don't like everybody. And most of the time, I'm a little introverted and I like to be in my zone, in my place. I feel very uncomfortable when people ask for my number and I don't give them my phone number. and and but it's like there is a recognition that 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 which I perceive as the other is also an expression of the wholeness. And uh, when I see that, there are two things happening fundamentally. Let me see if I can remember the two. First is I'm at peace, knowing that there is no separation. So the other person may be telling me that they are in pain, they're suffering because of something. All I need to do is point them to their source. And it's not my responsibility to point them there. It's not even in my control to actually make them see it. But I can definitely give a pointer that, okay, you are the unaffected witness, the unaffected soul consciousness. So be there, be in that, and you will know the truth yourself. And this was the first thing. The second thing was that I first I have freed myself from my own image. Now I also free myself from the other person's image. Whether they are able to do it or not, whether they are able to heal or not, is not my burden. Now I try my best to comfort them by giving them the concept when I see. But I also have to accept the truth that some people will not be healed. Some people will not be able to see the consciousness, the soul self that I'm talking about. Why? Because probably it is not in their destiny as of this moment. Maybe later they will realize it. And those who come to this path and ask questions generally do realize it. But it is not in my control. So I free myself and I also free the other. And when we two are free, the nature of our relationship becomes beautiful. It changes tremendously. I do not see myself as the initiator of actions, and I do not see the other also as the initiator of actions. So there is no place for hatred, malice, blame, guilt, shame, spite, or any of those emotions. We may have altercations. That's life. We may have altercations. We may have differences. And sometimes, it can get a little heated up in a given moment, but it's all in the moment. Once the moment is gone, we are back here and now into our being, into the presence, into the soul consciousness, into the peace. And that alone is there. That is the only reality. Soul, that the vision, the higher vision is the only reality. There is no such thing as lower vision. In fact, when we try to divide these two, the higher self and the lower self, we are actually doing it from the lower self only. We're doing it from the mind, because mind is dualistic. It sees duality, so it creates this higher self and lower self. So Ramana Maharishi said that you already are the higher self. You are the higher consciousness, and he would just say, just see it. He wouldn't even give a method. He says any method that you try to attain that or achieve that is a process of becoming or unbecoming. So, what you're doing, you're getting caught into the same game, same trap of the mind. Oh, let me become this, let me become sharper, let me become better. And you get into the game of self improvement. No matter how much you try to improve self's basic nature is separation, which is pain. But when this self or the I dissolves into its source, then the mind stops. It just becomes quiet. And then, as you said, as you have experienced it, that your relationship with your thoughts change because you don't worry about it too much. You're like, okay, if this happens, it's fine. If that happens, that's fine too. So life becomes a little bit like that.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
And
And I
sometimes we
also,
hear,
go ahead.
yeah, go on, please.
Um,
Yeah, sometimes it can actually trouble people who are close to us, and they say, like, how can you be so insensitive? How can you be so unbothered? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just like this now."
yeah, there's a peace that comes over you. For those who are like,
Exactly.
I don't know if I experienced an awakening or this shift. And I like the word that you called it as well. And I'm forgetting this, like a new perspective of life. I'm forgetting your exact word that you used. Insight. Um,
Yes.
for people who have experienced this and they're questioning, have I had an awakening? Or, am I depressed? Did I have an insight or X, Y, or Z? What would you say to our listeners who are questioning, has this happened?
Yes. I think I made a video also about this topic. Now, you know, the most important concept here is that when the awakening happens, I still try to refrain and use the word that person gets awakened. It's not that the person gets awakened. The awakening is a crack into the structure of personality. So, when that crack happens, of course there is confusion, conflict initially, because your whole world has turned upside down. So the difference is in depression, in a normal case where it's just sadness and depression, the story is constant. It's like I'm not understood, I'm not seen, I'm not heard. It's more about me, 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 I. I'm not heard, I'm not seen, I'm not validated. This is the way things should be. They shouldn't be that way. So there is a constant sadness that is maintained, that leads to fatigue, that leads to inaction, and they're caught up in one story repeatedly. Now, awakening is actually something different because there is a dent into that story now. So sometimes you will feel euphoric that you're free of the story, and sometimes you will feel, oh, no, 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 I may be going into the wrong path, and doubt, and there is doubt and confusion and conflict. Now I say, if you are experiencing, but most of the time you do experience a lot of peace after that. Now, the emotional intensity is high. The swings of highs and lows are there, which make people say that, oh, it's miserable. But actually, from what I've seen, talking to people, and most of them have said that, you know, we didn't care how painful it was. We just had to go that way. We just had to go that way. There was no other way for us to go. And that's the beauty of it. And so in the case of a normal in the case of awakening, it's like you begin to question everything, and there is a lot of self-reflection that happens during those moments of peace when you know, because you start to examine that, oh, I believe this, but now I'm not very sure about this. But in depression, there is generally a constant story that is maintained. In awakening, that story is questioned. So for those people who are in that confusion, that is why I created that video, because I had gone through that confusion for uh, for many years myself, and it was quite an experience. It was quite intense, but yes, it brought deep insights. Now, insight is not a piece of knowledge, the like the worldly knowledge. Insight is like you just know it in your being. You just realize and you know it in your being. You know, there is some knowledge. And my first insight was that every happiness in this plane comes attached with unhappiness. And this was the first insight that actually was very painful in the beginning, but it brought a tremendous peace later on. No matter what we attain, the best relationship, the best job, the best business work, what comes with happiness comes attached with unhappiness. This duality cannot be broken. This realization itself leads to oneness or soul consciousness.
Yes, I agree. Our suffering, I know for myself and my experience, has really opened me up and transformed my life. My suffering has been a gift to my life for sure. And Jagjot, I always ask one final question. It's been such a pleasure to host you. This has been a great conversation, and I've loved everything that you've shared. What is one final jewel of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with today?
Yes. I would just say unconditional acceptance of what is peace. That means total surrender to whatever the universe is presenting will lead you to peace. So open yourself to that acceptance and then verify through your personal experience if it has changed your life or not. For me, I mean, this is what I received. This is the message I received from all the masters. This has been my experience. And therefore, I tell everyone that the unconditional acceptance of what is the things the way they are is peace. That's it. It's like very simple. There's no method, there's no practice. I mean, this itself can be a practice if one sees it that way, but other than that, there is no practice to become whole or complete, because you are complete, you are whole, you're perfect. You couldn't have been any other way. Your blueprint is what the universe designed for you. Just live it fully without letting the thinking mind intervene. And the creativity will happen, the flow will happen, and and radiance will come out of it.
Beautiful. What a great way to end the show. That was beautiful. Thank you for that gem of wisdom. And how can people reach you?
Thank you so much, Liz. Well, you can. There's YouTube channel and there's a website also, jagjotSingh.com, and we conduct Zoom talks on Wednesdays and Sundays. If anybody's interested, they can join. It's a beautiful community, and we laugh and we have fun and we share stories. So if anybody wants to be a part of it, you're most welcome. It's completely free of charge. There's no cost, and you can come and contribute and share. Not just ask questions, but share your life experiences, which can also help other members in the community. So yes, so jagjotSingh.com is the website where you can find the details, and the YouTube channel is there, of course, for other teachings and other messages if they want to, if they are interested.
Wonderful. And our listeners can also find your books on your website too. So I highly recommend all of our listeners to check out your YouTube channel and check out your website and all the content that you have to offer and sign up to sit with the satsang with you. Thank you so much for being a guest. It's been such a pleasure to have you and to have this discussion with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Liz. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been really wonderful. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be on your platform. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for staying up so late. I know the time difference. It's in the middle of the night for you. So I appreciate you staying up late to have this conversation with me.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's been a delightful conversation. So it's all good.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining me. Again, I'm Liz Peterson and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And you can find me everywhere on social media and my website, raisethevibewithliz.com. And I have started Meditation Monday. So join me for that, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can find the link on social media. And I'm also going to be doing a monthly full moon yoga nidra. Please join me for that. And you can find that on social media as well, the links to those. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jagjot, for joining me. And everybody, remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Have a great day, everyone. Bye now.